Back in May of 2024, I packed up my life in Toronto and moved down to San Francisco. It's been just over a year now, and I've learned a lot about what it's really like to live in the US versus Canada. Today, I want to share things that shocked me most, what I wish I knew before moving, and what I'm still trying to figure out. Now, I've already made a whole video about why I chose to move, so I'm not going to rehash that. This is more of a year in review, the unfiltered version of what it's actually been like for me. First, I'm going to talk about the three things that I wish I knew before I even got here. First thing is healthcare. Healthcare is going to come up in every single one of these. Growing up in a place with socialized healthcare, coming to a place where there is not socialized healthcare and it's known to be the most expensive healthcare in the world was really, really jarring for me. I wish I knew before I got here a little bit more about how insurance works, the systems, how to pick, and how to get insurance in California, because it meant that when I got here, I was really struggling to figure it out and I didn't want to go outside and not have healthcare. So I wish I took the time before I moved to the United States to learn a little bit more about it and make sure that I could get it as soon as possible so that I was covered from day one. The next thing I wish I knew a little bit more about before I moved here was how important a US ID is. Obviously, I wasn't allowed to get one before I was legally a resident here, and I got my visa stamped at the Canadian border. So I couldn't get one until I had proof that I had that visa stamp in my passport. I remember further down the line, a few months into being here, I could still use my Canadian driver's license for the time being until I had time to get a California license. Little did I know that sometimes it would be hard to get into bars with a Canadian ID because they would think it's fake. So that troubled me sometimes. And there's been a few things along the line that having the ID has been helpful for. Prior to the US implementing the Real ID laws, I could have flown with just a US ID as opposed to having to bring my passport everywhere if I was flying domestically, which would have been helpful. The other thing is when you have to do an ID verification for an app or a bank account or anything, it really helps to have a US ID because then you can just go through the computer system as opposed to having to do the one where somebody is checking your stuff afterwards and it's going to take you, 24 hours to be reviewed and confirmed to participate in using an app. The last thing I wish I knew before I got here is how car-centric the United States and specifically San Francisco are. I didn't have a car when I got here. I do now, thankfully. But the United States does not do public transit very well. Unless you're in New York, public transit is not something that you're going to use to get everywhere you can. And specifically, it's not super safe. So I wish I understood before that how often I was going to be in a car and how I should prioritize getting my United States driver's license as soon as possible. Okay, next are the things that shocked me the most about moving here. Number one, obviously healthcare. Even though I have what is considered good insurance, if I get sick, visit the doctor and get one lab test run, for some reason, I still owe $800. It really doesn't make any sense to me. Still trying to figure it out, still trying to learn how to deal with insurance companies. Just going to do that one really quickly because it's going to come up every single time. The next thing that's really shocking in the United States is the normalization of air travel. Everybody in the United States is so comfortable just hopping on a quick flight. And they're used to that because airfare is so cheap in the United States. Typically, to fly from Toronto to Montreal, which is a 5-hour drive and a 1-hour flight, it's usually going to cost you 200 to 300 Canadian dollars. It's pretty expensive. To fly from San Francisco to Vegas, you can get a flight round trip for $49 on a good day and $99 on a bad day. Las Vegas is way further away from San Francisco than Montreal is to Toronto, but for some reason, air travel is so cheap here and everyone is just like, yeah, I'm just going to go for the weekend and I'll be back. The next thing that shocked me about moving to the States is groceries and food. So in Canada, most people just shop at regular grocery stores. You don't see people having cult classics of needing to go to Whole Foods or Sprouts because they only shop organic and they're super afraid of pesticides. That really doesn't exist in Canada. We have very different food safety laws where a lot of people just feel very comfortable eating the standard, chicken from grocery stores and the standard fruits and vegetables from grocery stores. The last thing that shocked me the most about moving to the United States, and this is a very San Francisco centric thing, is the transient nature of being here. Specifically, there's not a lot of locals. Growing up in Toronto, everyone was a local. And that didn't mean that they grew up in Toronto, but they probably grew up in one of the nearing suburbs, like I did. So when I met other people, they were usually from a suburb nearby to where I grew up. As opposed to in San Francisco, people come from everywhere in the world to be here, and typically, they don't stay here very often. For one, they don't stay for many years, they end up going home very quickly, and two, just over weekends, people just leave. It's very unusual to be in a place where it's very transient because I find that it's harder and it takes longer to nurture relationships because you just don't get as many opportunities with people. So the last part of this year in review is the things that I'm still figuring out. Cap it off, just like I capped off the the last two, I'm still figuring out healthcare. Insurance is still hard. I have no idea how to access dental. I don't know how to pay for vision care. All of the billing is really confusing, and bills come in the mail, and then I get text messages, and I'm like, why does this cost so much? And it's just really hard to deal with. The next thing that I'm trying to figure out is building wealth. I have stated many times over many videos that the point of me being in the United States is to accumulate wealth. And I have a job, and that is great. But in order to get to the next level of wealth building, I have to be a little more considerate about what I'm going to do. Thankfully, I'm in a place where there's a bunch of people who have a bunch of knowledge about a bunch of different ways to get rich. I know I want to be here. I know I'm on the right path. I just don't know what's next for me. The last thing I'm still figuring out is where I'm going to end up long term. Thankfully, I have an opportunity to continue to stay in the United States for as long as I continue working and creating value for the United States, which is a great perk of the visa that I'm on. But I don't know where I want to live. I don't know where I want to raise kids, buy a home, put down roots, and I'm just not sure. That's still something I'm figuring out. And I think it's a really common thing to experience in a city like San Francisco or New York, where everyone's trying to work really hard and work on a singular goal right now. And it's really hard to see the long-term plan because you have so many expectations of what your current effort is going to yield for you in the future. So that's my year in review. That's how I feel after spending a year and a bit in San Francisco in the United States and trying to navigate things I wish I knew before, things that shocked me, and what I'm still trying to figure out. Thanks for watching.